Hello, everyone. If I could have your attention. Treat me with the respect that you've always treated me with for all these years, but welcome, everybody. If we could all settle down. I'm doing a magic trick for this event. Thank you very much. Well, hello to all, and thank you for joining us for these next few days. It is my pleasure to call the meeting to order and to introduce our host city and our host executive director, Oramenta Newsome.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Oramenta Newsome, executive director of the Washington, D.C. LISC program. And on behalf of the LISC team, Marty Mellard, Dawn Leary, Michelle Mingle, Ramon Jacobson, and the chair of our local advisory committee, Richard Snowden, we welcome you to Washington, D.C. Yeah. There is much to see and appreciate in our nation's capital, but we want to welcome you to what we call off the mall, our neighborhoods, the places where we have the privilege of working with an amazing assortment of partners. In Congress Heights, our largest new markets tax credit allocation that brought a grocery store to this neighborhood, to this food desert, where they hadn't seen a grocery store in over 15 years. The neighborhood that will now be the home to the U.S. Coast Guard and the Department of Homeland Security. And we hope to make that a source of commerce and jobs for this neighborhood. Ivy City, where we are helping to build, renovate, and develop 58 homes for sale in a neighborhood that has less than 200 homes. The Southwest, home of our waterfront, which is slated for quite an excellent revitalization and redevelopment. Years from now, you will come back and you will not recognize the Southwest waterfront, where we're working with a community organization that's making sure that there will be community benefits from the redevelopment of the Southwest waterfront. Parkside, our promised neighborhood, one of 21 grantees for the U.S. Department of Education's Promised Neighborhood. And it is very exciting to be a part of the work in a neighborhood where the community has decided to focus and to center their work on education with the understanding that our little ones and our youth are our future. Starting January 2001, we have a new mayoral administration, the administration of Mayor Vincent Gray, a longtime friend of LISC. We're excited about working with the new administration. And one reason that we're excited about working with this administration is because of a newly appointed deputy mayor, Deputy Mayor Beatriz Ortero. And for us locally, Deputy Mayor Bibi. She's a personal friend and a friend of LISC. And she was one of the executive director prior to taking the deputy mayor positions of one of our premier nonprofits in our Columbia Heights neighborhood. So with that, I would like to welcome Deputy Mayor Beatriz Ortero to bring you greetings from Mayor Vincent Gray.
Good afternoon, and welcome to D.C., the city that will soon become a state. And for those of you who are going, what does she mean? You will hear our mayor speak about this all the time, every time he has an opportunity, and that is that the District of Columbia needs to join the rest of the country and the rest of the world in the movement towards democracy, because we need representation on the Hill. And so I bring you greetings from Mayor Vincent Gray. He, I think, is on his 5th event of the day at this moment, and has been visiting one of the shelters for so many of our families who are lacking housing and affordable housing in the city. And so he's sorry not to be able to join you, but he wants me to make sure to let you know that we appreciate your tourist dollars spend in our neighborhoods and in our communities, enjoy the District of Columbia, and then bring your families back to visit us. I want to thank Oramenta first and foremost for all of her amazing dedication to the District of Columbia and more important to the neighborhoods, as well as her staff and Richard and the board for the years and years that LISC has really committed to this city. Mayor Gray has 4 priorities aside from our statehood priority for his administration. And we are really looking to make sure that all of the activities that we do as a government in the District of Columbia line up around these 4 areas. And for me, the work with LISC is so closely tied to every single one of them, as Oramenta has already spoken. Fiscal stability for the city and for cities across the country, as you know, is absolutely critical. In this moment of economic downturn and what cities are now really beginning to feel that families have already felt in the last 2 or 3 years, it's a moment to really tighten our belt and to be much more efficient with what we have. But a city can't be fiscally stable if its families and communities are not. And what LISC brings is the ability to help on the ground, work with home ownership, with stabilizing neighborhoods, and joining government around the redevelopment of some of our core neighborhoods across the city and some of our poorest neighborhoods. Education is a key priority. You know that the District of Columbia has been leading in the reform efforts in education, and as Oramenta spoke, Promise Neighborhoods is one of those key educational opportunities that the district can showcase across the country, but not only across the country, but for its own people in one of its most critical neighborhoods. And LISC is at that table helping organize that. Job creation, again, it goes to stability, it goes to community stability, and it goes to making sure that you know, what's amazing about the District of Columbia is that we have neighborhoods where our jobless numbers are at less than 9%, and we have neighbors where unemployment is at 30%, 35%. And again, it's in those neighborhoods that LISC is supporting, providing support, and our hope that as we develop properties, as we invest in redevelopment, that it's our very own families who can in fact be trained to be the workers and become specialized in those areas, so that then those in the private sector are hiring locally. And finally, public safety. And we know that when neighborhoods are developed, when neighborhoods get good lighting, stores, foot traffic, there is, we definitely increase the safety issue for families and for children living there. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all to Washington, to tell you that you're right aligned with all of the goals that this administration has, and that I'm committed as deputy mayor for as long as this seat lasts, to partner with LISC in this work. So thank you very much.
Well, on a personal note, I must admit it's good to see so many familiar faces and friends and colleagues. Over the next 3 days, over 900 of us are going to be joining to celebrate this occasion and to discuss critical issues and opportunities facing our industry and the people and the families that live in low-income neighborhoods. We are also excited that this conference to launch live video streaming at most of our plenaries and breakout sessions. We are optimistic that these proceedings will not only spark creative thinking among our attendees, but will also be the foundation for expanded conversations and engagements with your local leadership network upon your return home to your respective communities. Just some housekeeping items for the next 3 days. It should be easy, folks. All of the meetings are going to be on this level, so no one should get lost. We will be in the breakout rooms behind us after our lunch, and I trust all of you will be joining us for our policy session at 3:15 back in this room. Tomorrow is the gala in addition to the other breakout sessions. It starts with a reception at 5:45, and everyone will be needed to be seated, at 7 p.m. for dinner. We are providing bus transportation from the hotel starting at 5:30, and it will run to 6. We readily understand that this is a little tight. We ask for your cooperation and patience, and we're optimistic that it will all work out. Tonight, we are also looking forward to all of you joining with us at 6:15 on the lobby level. So to get drinks, we are making you work a little, in the Garden Terrace for a reception that is going to be hosted by the National Equity Fund. Finally, we have added a few new features at this meeting that we encourage you to use at the hotel, including LISC at 30 iPad applications that are throughout the foyer level. There's a LISC poll on IMAX that I trust all of you will use. And many of you already have noticed there's a LISC photo gallery also of our 30 years in the back. All of this is located again on this level, so please take advantage of all of this. Well, enough of the gory administrative details. Many of you are aware that once again I am asked to introduce our next speaker. I must admit that I am especially honored and humbled because for most of the past 30 years, a little scary for me, I have worked with or for him. In many ways, he has the perfect community development profile. He was a New York City school teacher in Harlem. I must note, though, before the founder of Teach America was even born. He was the assistant commissioner of the New York City Department of Employment, a former special assistant at the Ford Foundation, a founding program officer at LISC. I believe he's the only one in the audience today with that title, the executive vice president of the Pew Charitable Trust, and chief operating officer, and for the past 12 years, president and CEO of LISC. My recollection of some of his memorable LISC moments, you may want to stay seated for this, include the first presentation of a LISC loan to the board of directors. Notice no credit committee, everyone, back then. The first loan repayment from a Boston CDC. We thank Boston. The design of the first secondary market for community development loans with the Himes Foundation. And not such a bad third baseman for the now defunct LISC softball team, which I do want to mention merited a story in the New York Times. Much of what we take for granted in community development, in one way or another, has touched him. The desire to empower those who still too often are left behind still drives him, and his sound judgment to manage under difficult times continues to benefit us all. Please join me in welcoming our President and CEO, Michael Rubinger.
My God, Richard, a serious introduction after all these years. Who would have guessed it? You know, Richard, actually the introduction was quite accurate, except for one thing. I was the shortstop, not the third baseman on the LISC softball team. And Richard, by the way, was the center fielder. We actually had a good team. I want to, you know, I don't often do this, especially at the beginning of a conference, but I was so struck by what's been done out in the lobby by our staff and you know, what they've put together out there. I have no idea what any of it is, mind you, but it's really great. And if you really haven't had a chance to look around and look at some of the technology stuff that they have out there, it's really terrific stuff. And I really want to commend Michael Tang and his staff who put that all together all night long, I think, because the hotel literally had to build a wall for us to put pictures on out there because they didn't want to put holes in the wall. So they did that all night, and it was amazing. You know, I look out on the sea of faces here. I'm reminded of a story when we did our 20th anniversary. I don't know how many of you were there, but we did our 20th anniversary at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, and Bob Rubin had just recently left Treasury and had become the LISC chairman of the board, which he still is. And in his way, when I said to him, you know, Bob, we're having this 20th anniversary celebration at the Waldorf, and we're inviting people to come in, you know, you really are going to have to make room in your schedule to be there. And he said to me, will anybody come? And I said, I hope so, because it was my first, too. I had been away for the other big celebrations. So we get to the event at the Waldorf, and naturally, like here, there were hundreds of people, and he's wandering around, and he's talking to everybody, and he comes over to me at the reception, and he said, this is amazing. There's people here from all over the country. I said, well, you know, it is a national organization, Bob. So anyway, I really appreciate seeing you all here. I'm glad that you're still coming, and as these events go on, maybe you'll keep coming in subsequent years as well. And I do want to thank you for coming. I know many of you had to travel long distances to get here, some through snow and sleet and rain and other bad things. So we really appreciate it. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I think we've really put together a program that I believe will be interesting, entertaining, and hopefully informative over the next couple of days. And of course, many of you will be participating in the sessions on local programs, and I very much look forward to your presentations and to what I think will be productive discussions after that. As far as I'm concerned, it's these sessions that really are the highlight and the point of this entire gathering. A week or so ago, I was reading the latest issue of the Chronicle of Philanthropy. Yes, I read the Chronicle of Philanthropy. I guess it must be my background with Pew and Ford and whatnot, but I still read the Chronicle. And I was struck by several articles there with a similar theme. The first was about a new book entitled Mistakes to Success, Learning and Adapting When Things Go Wrong. It was written by, one of the authors was Bob Gilloth. I don't know if Bob is here today. He may well be. He's been at the Annie Casey Foundation for a long time, and for a long time has been a friend of LISC. The second article was called A Foundation's Report on Its Failings Should Spur Reflection Among Grant Makers. And this was about a report done by the Northwest Area Foundation. And in the same context, I was reminded of a study done a few years ago by Hewlett out on the West Coast about lessons learned from its failure to implement a comprehensive community development program in California. The common thread here, obviously, is that philanthropy, as elsewhere, you should learn from your mistakes. Now, I suppose that's a commendable notion, but I was thinking, how about this for a novel idea? How about recognizing, acknowledging, and building on our successes, just for a change of pace? And that's precisely what we set out to do in 2007 when we created our Building Sustainable Communities National Program Strategy. As you all know by now, we crafted that strategy based on the very successful experience of our Chicago LISC program. And as you also know, we rolled out that strategy to our other local LISC programs right into the teeth of the worst recession since the 1930s. A great choice of program models, I think, but timing apparently is not our long suit. So I'm not telling you anything you don't already know when I say that the last few years have not been easy ones, and 2010 was no exception. Last year, for the third year running, we saw communities continue to be shaken by the ongoing economic decline as increasing unemployment, distressed housing markets, rampant foreclosures, and funding shortfalls for everything from schools to social services took an increasing toll, particularly in low-income areas. But we also witnessed surprising progress in many of the neighborhoods where we work. Local stakeholders, many of them right here in this room, continue to implement comprehensive community development plans that not only help promote long-term stability, but counter some of the most damaging economic fallout. Those plans are connecting better schools and community safety initiatives with job creation, affordable housing, economic development, and family asset building, among many other things. Certainly, the recession has impacted these communities, but in some respects, they've been able to move forward and grow in spite of it. And you'll be hearing a lot more about that over the next couple of days. At LISC itself, we've experienced the recession just like everybody else. But somehow, miraculously, we actually find ourselves today in a healthier financial position with a stronger balance sheet and considerably greater net worth than we had before the downturn began. In 2010, we also expanded our program activity in significant ways, and our investing, lending, and grant-making topped the $1 billion mark for the first time since 2007. Some of that reflects the remarkable performance of the National Equity Fund, our tax credit syndication arm, under the extraordinary leadership of Joe Hagan, which posted record results in 2010. But it also speaks to a recovery in our lending, solid fundraising, and new partnerships that have attracted fresh capital to important programs. We were, for example, the recipient of one of the inaugural grants from the White House's Social Innovation Fund for the expansion of our financial opportunity centers to 10 additional cities. I'm especially proud of the fact that of the 11 initial grantees selected by the fund, we were the only community development organization among them. We also received an award from the Federal Treasury Department's Capital Magnet Fund, which will allow us to expand the availability of loan capital to our local program sites. And perhaps most importantly, we received an additional $70 million allocation of New Markets tax credits to support our continuing economic development work. And let me say with absolutely no modesty at all, that with this award, LISC continues to be the largest recipient of New Markets credits in the country, with a total of over $700 million. So given the overall economic conditions, we were quite pleased with what we were able to accomplish this past year. And in this, our 30th anniversary year, let me assure you that what we accomplished and are accomplishing, with the help of our many partners, both local and national, far exceeds anything we had in mind in 1980 when we began. Our principal goal when we made our first loan back in 1980, and by the way, Richard Manson stole my thunder here. I was going to do a trivia contest and ask you who made the first loan at LISC, because of course it was me. And if some Weisenheimer out there said, yeah, but did it get repaid? The answer, yes, it did get repaid. It's probably Beth Marcus is saying, well, did it get repaid? It got repaid. So that it only goes to show that if you live long enough, you too can become an irrelevant footnote to history. Anyway, back then in 1980, our goal was to help residents, as you know, and community-based organizations revitalize blighted neighborhoods, focusing principally on the built environment. We knew then that it would be a long-term proposition, one that required steady nurturing and deep commitment, as well as funding. And all of that, of course, remains true. But LISC today is a vastly different organization than we were in 1980. And not just because of the passage of time or our national expansion during the intervening years. Back then, we were largely testing the theory that locally driven redevelopment could succeed where large-scale, top-down government programs had not. Simply put, the hypothesis was that if LISC could arm residents with the right financial tools and technical know-how, those residents could revitalize their own communities. And so we set out to do just that. Blighted buildings were turned to productive use, mostly as affordable housing, some as retail. As time went on, we expanded our support to other development projects like child care centers, charter schools, health clinics, and supermarkets. In some places, this building-by-building revitalization began to change the community's outlook. The progress was visible and tangible. And certainly, physical redevelopment is critical to low-income communities. In fact, it's been the foundation of our work at LISC, and we've seen how significantly it can impact neighborhoods, and it always will be important. But over the years, something else became clear. Investing in affordable housing and other physical redevelopment alone was not enough to ensure sustainable change. No amount of new affordable housing would suffice for a family whose parents can't find work, or send their kids to a quality school, or walk safely down their street without encountering gangs and drugs, or find any hint of a grocery store, healthcare provider, or decent recreational space. As a former colleague, Paul Williams, used to put it, the places were doing better, but the people were not. We needed to do more to improve quality of life. That was the genesis of building sustainable communities. Launched in 2007 as an expanded strategic direction for LISC, today it defines our overarching approach to community development. From revitalized commercial corridors to early childhood education, from arts and culture to safe parks, from after-school recreation to green jobs programs, this strategy recognizes that a healthy community is much more than a place on a map or renovated buildings on a street. A healthy community is a place where families have access to quality education for their children. It's a neighborhood where the streets are safe, the parks are active, and the corner playgrounds are a welcome gathering place for parents, grandparents, and kids. The retail areas are bustling with grocery stores, restaurants, and shops. There are jobs and local services that help families build a financially secure future. There are arts programs and neighborhood festivals. And there are homes that are affordable to residents with a range of incomes and aspirations. A healthy community provides stability for families, energizes economies, and is a place where any of us would choose to live and be happy with the choice. In practice, that plays out in many different ways for LISC. Beyond supporting thousands of new affordable homes every year, which continues to be a high priority, building sustainable communities includes our $40 million investment in community-based health centers like those that opened in Milwaukee, Kansas City, and Chicago in 2010, and innovative neighborhood-based health promotion and service programs like the Backyard Initiative in Minneapolis. It means we collaborate with the Department of Justice, local law enforcement, and community organizations on programs that tackle the drivers of crime and violence, expanding promising pilot programs from places like Providence, Rhode Island, and Boston to numerous neighborhoods in a dozen other cities through our National Community Safety Initiative. We hone in on critical economic development needs, like the LISC-financed grocery store that now stands in a former South Los Angeles food desert, and the new big box retailer that is helping energize a blighted pocket of Chicago's North Side. Both of these projects integrated affordable housing into their retail development plans. Both countered blight. Both provided essential services. Both created jobs, and both are having a significant positive impact in their communities. Education is also central. We've invested $127 million to support well over 100 charter school facilities across the country, including new school openings last year in Indianapolis and Jacksonville. In 2010, we received new commitments totaling $50 million from Goldman Sachs and Chase to further expand our charter school activities. And we're now supporting innovative service learning and after-school programs that create opportunities for at-risk youth to learn and compete in a 21st century global economy, like the Second Story, a creative writing center in Indianapolis, and the Urban Ecology Center in Milwaukee that provides students with science instruction while restoring a neglected city park. Building sustainable communities ties these critical pieces together. Likewise, It's what frames our support for new recreational facilities, sports programs, and green space, like Nat Turner Field in Newark's largest city park, or Clyde Park in Duluth, where a new hockey facility, athletic field, and restaurants replaced an abandoned industrial park. This work creates and connects to jobs in the communities that need them most. Construction jobs generated by real estate development, retail positions created by economic development, teaching positions that come from new charter schools. But building sustainable communities is also more deliberate about the jobs challenge. As I mentioned earlier, with support from the Federal Social Innovation Fund and matching grants from Citi, Walmart, Bank of America, Annie Casey, MacArthur, and U.S. Bank, we've been expanding our financial opportunity centers, now operating or preparing to open in some 60 different communities, to help low-income families find jobs, expand their incomes, and build assets. Cincinnati, Detroit, Houston, San Diego, St. Paul, and Duluth are among the cities that saw new funding in 2010 to help these centers extend their impact. These are just a few examples of how building sustainable communities is making a difference in neighborhoods. And of course, all of this progress is particularly critical in the current economic environment as more people and more neighborhoods find themselves slipping into the kind of distress that was so prevalent at LISC's founding 30 years ago. But there's an important difference. Unlike then, today, in building sustainable communities, we have a proven strategy to help them reverse course. But let's be clear, our work has only just begun. Many challenges still lay ahead. First, of course, is the political climate in which we currently find ourselves. Despite the considerable success I believe we've achieved, rarely has our industry and our mission been so vulnerable. We live in a time of sharp division in public debate and declining public interest in inner cities and rural poverty. We can no longer rely on a broad-based consensus about the value of what we do, or even about the importance of the problems we're addressing. In short, continued access to private capital and public subsidies, as well as public policies supportive of our work, are all in danger of seriously eroding. And this is not a partisan statement. The fact is that community development has always appealed to people on both sides of the political aisle. Some of our staunchest supporters over the years in the Congress, for example, have been Republicans as well as Democrats. So I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats. I'm talking about the naysayers, the people who would indiscriminately lay waste to everything that those of us in this room have tried to accomplish for the past 30 years. They may be loud, and they certainly get more attention than their numbers deserve, but they are in the minority. And those of us in the majority cannot allow ourselves to be tyrannized by that minority. So here's where I come out. I know we have the right idea in our Building Sustainable Communities strategy. And I know we can't give up or give in just because we find ourselves in enormously difficult and trying times. I know we have to continue to fight for what we believe in and for what works. In the short run, there may not be a lot of room for significant new federal funding initiatives. So we have to work together to protect the effective programs and important resources we already have, like Section 4, low-income housing tax credits, new markets tax credits, the Rural Self-Help Housing Program, the Social Innovation Fund, AmeriCorps, the Community Reinvestment Act, and the other essential tools of our industry. But we have to be smart, and we have to stay focused. We have to pick our battles carefully and skillfully, targeting those that matter most and have the greatest impact. If we do that, I believe we can win some important victories, even in this poisonous political climate. Our second great challenge moving forward, I think, is this. While it's one thing to be successful in our neighborhood-level program efforts, it's quite another to make them known more broadly and more persuasively to the people we need most to support our work, like public policymakers, private funders, business people, and the media. We have every right to be proud of the role we're playing and the impact we're having in neighborhoods all across the country. But at the same time, we should be equally frustrated with the lack of recognition that these accomplishments have received. And this is not about ego. It's important because the wider world will only support us if they know us and what we do, and if they believe in the value of our work. Fortunately, as you are well aware, the story we have to tell is a rich one, full of successes and solid progress. But we need to tell it much more broadly to a far wider audience. As an example, over the past 10 years, LISC has raised an average of $55 million a year in private contributions, mostly from private and corporate foundations. That's a sizable number, to be sure. And I'm proud of the fact that LISC and Habitat for Humanity are the only two community development institutions that consistently make the Chronicle of Philanthropy's annual top 400 fundraising organizations. But the problem is, of course, that $55 million spread over 30 urban programs and a 31-state rural initiative gets very thin very fast. And building sustainable communities is clearly an extremely ambitious undertaking. In my view, the most ambitious we've ever attempted at LISC. It can't be done on a shoestring. And yet in too many of our communities, that is precisely what we find ourselves trying to do. Clearly, that has to change if we expect to continue to progress in a meaningful way. If we are to attract new funders and retain existing ones, we need to find new, more compelling ways to describe what we do, to measure outcomes and results, and to convince more people that what we do works and matters. We need to do a far better job of rigorously gauging the role of our strategies in reversing economic decline, restoring order and social cohesion, and reviving an atmosphere of opportunity in distressed neighborhoods. Our challenge is to bring this story to life for more people, both those in power and those they listen to. How to create greater visibility and better understanding of our Building Sustainable Communities strategy and your accomplishments on the ground in your communities is something we struggle with constantly at LISC. And I want to assure you that it will be an especially high priority as we move forward. But it won't be easy. It takes no great insight to tell you that bringing the public's attention to bad news stories in neighborhoods is far easier than spotlighting the positive ones. I began these remarks by noting how popular it is these days to dwell on and presumably learn from failure rather than success. I think we need to work very hard to reverse that formula. I've been in the community development business now for 40 years, as scary as that may sound, both to you and to me. So I guess in one way or the other, I've seen it all, or most of it anyway, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I admit it makes me cynical sometimes, but I believe in what we're doing. I believe in this Building Sustainable Communities approach. I believe in it because I've been to your cities and towns, or many of them anyway, and I've witnessed firsthand the marvelous things that are being accomplished in our targeted neighborhoods. Over the next 2 days, you're going to hear about some of those things, from places as diverse as Indianapolis, Richmond, California, Duluth, Providence, Rhode Island, Houston, Chicago, and more. Very different places, very different circumstances. But the stories you'll hear have one very important thing in common. They're about a new way of working in neighborhoods. They're about programs and projects being woven together in a mutually reinforcing way to achieve greater force and impact. And they're about how new relationships among organizations are creating a powerful neighborhood platform to raise the level of effort and sustain the work for the long haul. That's the message I hope you'll take away from these next couple of days, that you'll believe as deeply and as strongly as I do that building sustainable communities is taking hold and is working in diverse communities all across the country. That's the message I hope you'll take home with you and share with your colleagues, elected officials, funders, business leaders, reporters, and frankly, anyone else who'll listen. So in closing, I want to thank you all again for coming, and I do want to say to you what a privilege it's been for me to know you and to work with you all of these years. It's been a great ride, and I hope it continues to be, and I hope you will enjoy and find some time to party during the next 2 days, as well as to go to your sessions. Thank you very much.